Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I am extremely delighted because right now with me on Zoom, I have filmmaker JT Doran. Hey, JT.
Jeff, how are you? It is so good to be with you. Thank you for this.
Thank you, and it's great to see you. We met for the first time last year at the opening night gala of Filmvasion Los Angeles, June of last year, because it was an honor. Our festival, as I've always told you, is geographically ambiguous. We take the best films that we get submitted, and then we accept a film such as yours from the other side of the country. Sometimes, of course, we take stuff from Europe. And I always call it rewarding the idealism when someone like yourself goes to the airport somewhere in New York. I might have guessed LaGuardia or JFK, whatever.
JFK.
But JFK.
Mm-hmm. JFK.
You went over to JFK and you flew out to Los. I mean, I realize a lot of people use our festival as an excuse to visit LA. It's not like, oh man, I got to go to LA. I mean, but you flew out. I got to meet you because your film, More Dead Than Living, was an official selection at Filmvasion Los Angeles in 2025. Took home the Programmer's Prize for Exceptional Filmmaking. It was a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to have you at the festival. And then, of course, we do run, our nonprofit runs two festivals, Filmvasion LA earlier in the year. And then in December, we have the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. And you submitted More Dead Than Living to Sherman Oaks as well. And I'd let you know, I assume I told you by email that whenever someone submits to the second one, if you've already been in the theater, we make you an official selection, but we don't necessarily screen it at the theater unless we're getting close to the wire and I'm like, okay, we've got room, because obviously it's about getting more films into the theater. But you accepted those our reasonable terms. In fact, you appreciated our policy, which not everyone does. And what do you know? More Dead Than Living also earned you the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Short Film Comedy. And then you personally got Outstanding Screenplay for Short Film Comedy. And I'll mention that the Filmmakers Awards are decided by a jury of your peers. It's an alumni jury. So I always think that's rad. So anyway, I will refer to More Dead Than Living as the multi-award winning film, one of the special ones that was in both of our festivals in the same year, which doesn't always happen. And it's a pleasure. I love the film. It's honestly right up my alley in that, it is very funny, but also very meaningful. And I might even call it deep and intellectual while being entertaining, which is not something everyone can pull off. And the last thing I see in my notes is we were also honored that we had the LA premiere.
You did.
So that's always... Look, I say this too often. I know people don't sit back and rub their hands together and say, okay, let's hold our film until we can get into either Sherman Oaks or Filmvasion LA. Let's make sure they get our premiere. But when we get a premiere, it's still kind of a fun thing.
So there's a million people on Film Freeway. There's a gazillion festivals. Yours is definitely top 100, but hopefully probably top 10. And I did the recon. Like, I look at the festivals outside of Film Freeway. I saw the people on your board. I saw the reviews. And I said, holy shit, I would be so thrilled and honored to be part of a community like this. Because I got a sense that this was not just a festival for the sake of being a festival. I got a sense you cared about film and you wanted to cultivate community. And you did. And, I was like, I'm going out for this festival. And man, like, Jeff, come on. It was incredible. That opening night at Solar, the love in the room, the sense of community, the good vibes were incredible. And you remembered the film. I remember meeting you outside of it. You remembered the film and you looked me in the eye. I was like, this is great. And then the next night at the Block, the programming, the 4 films we saw, I remember them. The Paperboy and that sound explosion that was causing chaos. And then the other one with the nuclear alert and that couple trying to figure it out in their last few hours of living. Then my film, and then the drama, with the tortured high school guy who had the problems at home because of his dad, and he was trying to sort of work it out. It was this brilliant block of things that hit you in the gut, that didn't last too long. The timing was right. And on the red carpet, This never has happened. The interviewer, blonde woman, so amazing. She saw my film. She saw the film. She had a conversation with me about the film. That has never happened. I've been in knock on wood, I'm not humble bragging, but not really. I've been in a lot of festivals. I have never had someone on the red carpet have had seen the film.
Never. How well? I have to. It's funny because I was going to say, look, I didn't just know your film. I know for a fact that our red carpet interviewer Danielle Strittmatter, I'll mention Danielle. She's a wonderful person. Makes a point of she's actually on that filmmakers board, and she makes a point of watching every official selection. I mean, so she's a very talented filmmaker herself. Yeah, I bet her questions also showed a little insight.
The gentleman with glasses did the Q&A, and he had seen the film too, and he had questions pertinent to each and every film. That just doesn't happen. So many people are, it's like the festival director and founder is there, and he or she are asking questions based on having seen the film right then and there. Your team came prepared, like, oh my God, that's just a warm hug and like sort of a keep going for us filmmakers. That's great, man. Please don't ever lose that. Not that I think you will, but it was very, very special. And I'm so glad I went to be a part of it. It's one of the festivals that is so worth it. And I don't know how many festivals are worth it like that.
What's funny is you're going to make me quote our T-shirt amusingly. Well, that was also the 10th anniversary of Filmvasion Los Angeles that you were at. And at our 10th anniversary, I think I wish I had a better memory, but somewhere along the line, someone said to me in our first, honestly, probably around year 4 to 6, someone said, you guys give a shit.
Guys,
and then I always joke that we are the festival that gives a shit. And then for the 10th anniversary, I forget who suggested it, but I went, fuck it, let's put that on our shirts. So now our 10th anniversary T-shirt says the festival that gives a shit. We chickened out and made the I and up an exclamation point and shit so that it's SH exclamation point T, as if that, and
that's kosher. That's good. It's kosher.
But and look, it obviously took a couple years, but everyone we have on staff gives a shit. And what you shared with me is that it shows that from actually, I believe your interviewer, if they had glasses on, it was probably Gavin.
It was Gavin.
Gavin gives a shit. Yeah. Danielle gives a. If someone comes and joins our staff, because obviously it's a seasonal thing and we have to staff up for every festival. There's only about 2.5 of us who work year round. But man, when someone shows up and doesn't give a shit, I can't get them out of there fast enough.
I love and appreciate what you guys are doing. It was thrilling. It was the perfect fit. I wouldn't have wanted to be in any other festival in LA. This was great.
Well, thank you so much. And I guess we're done because I really just want to run this podcast so I can get some compliments and move on with my life. But no. And in fact, we totally fucked up because we were supposed to, in the early introduction, and I didn't know what time we started, but we're supposed to tell everyone that they can go to the show notes and get a link to More Dead Than Living, because More Dead Than Living has been released on YouTube. You've wrapped up your festival run, and this award-winning wonderful film is on YouTube for people to watch right now. So they could hit pause, watch it, and then listen to the rest of this, or they can listen to the rest of this and not worry about. I don't think they have to worry about spoilers per se.
No, we don't have to get into spoil. We can skirt around them, and we could still discuss the story in the world without spoilers. Yeah. So people, it's up to you whether you want to watch it now or later. There interesting things happen in the film. Yeah.
I mean, it's real. I mean, needless to say, it's a wonderful film. I'm so proud that we have the kind of jury that awards originality and uniqueness. So yeah, we will get to that. But before we talk more about More Dead Than Living, I warned you, I'm just going to ask for your own personal life story as a creative, because as a festival runner, I'm obviously deeply indebted to the fact that there's people like yourself who make films for the right reasons, who do it for the love of the art form, who tell stories because they have to. You didn't sit down and say, I use this joke too often, but no one sits down and rubs their hands together and go and says, "Oh boy, after I finish this 14-minute short, I'm going to make so much money." Right? It's the opposite. You're saying, "I have a life and I'm going to make this short because I need to." And same goes for, indie features have a shot at recouping, but Lord knows in this marketplace, no one sits down. And I might be biased when I say these things because I came up in the 90s, and in the 90s, we'd had She's Gotta Have It, and we had the Brothers McMullen and Clerks. Yeah. So there was a myth for a decade and a half or so that, like, oh, if you sit down and make a $20,000 feature film, you can then get a mansion and be set for life. And thank God that myth went away, because honestly, the festival experience in the 90s sucked because everyone was an asshole looking to get rich. No one was making films for the right reasons.
Oh, so it's funny. 90s films shaped me in a lot of ways. A lot of ways. I was in Kevin Smith's festival. More Dead was in Kevin Smith's. He has a festival in the Northeast.
Right. Part of the SMOD.
At Smod Castle. It's called the Smod Castle Film Fest. More Dead was in there. I went there. I was bummed because he wasn't there. Apparently he was taking a shower or a nap or something, because he has an apartment above the theater. But when I was a kid, it was like, yeah, maybe you could be Rodriguez with El Mariachi. Maybe you could be Clerks, with this and that. And they were great films. But, I think I had a sense then, like, these are exceptional, though. Not everyone could do that. The game has changed in terms of technology, distribution, economics, etc. That's disheartening to hear. But I trust your judgment. It's disheartening to hear that so many people wanted to be rich. Like this is.
Well, it was after that, and again, right, and those are exceptional films. But also, I saw exceptional films in the 90s at festivals that just didn't go anywhere. And I was like, why didn't they go? And in the end, there really is no rhyme or reason to it. So thankfully, but anyway, this is just my way of saying that the current generations making independent cinema are just wonderful artists. And, because you can't do it for the wrong reasons, because literally it's just, you'd have to be brain dead to think that it's gonna look. There's a chance that it advances your career over time to make quality stuff and then show it, and but everyone knows it's a slog now.
We do this because we cannot not do it. It's a curse. I did not ask for this. There is something in my being, in my soul, in my heart, in my bones that says I have to do this. And it is so deep and inexplicable. I can't say no to it. I can't say no to it. And if anyone could, I discourage everyone from doing this. You have to be batshit and insane. And the courage that you have, I don't know if it's brilliant, beautiful courage or just insanity. We make these things because we are driven to do them by something bigger than ourselves, and they're hard to get right. They're expensive. And even when they're not expensive, the expense of heart, of grit, of work, of hustle, of rejection,
of time,
of time, like More Dead Than Living, we made for like nothing, but we made it for nothing because I'm fortunate enough to know how to edit and to do some effects. And, we have a producer who also has a camera kit, et cetera, et cetera. So if you know how, there's a lot of ways to tell a story, and it's just, we have to often tell them small scale. And, it's small scale in terms of dollars and certain production design and scope of production. But in terms of heart, work, time, your life's energy, your life's blood, there's no measuring commodity for that, but at the end of the day, it's worth it.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
Even if you
share your did this did you catch the filmmaking bug as a young person? Were you a creative young person?
so I was born typical hood story. Dad was not around. Mom was anxious. On paper, mom should never have had a kid. She had me. I was probably a wild, rambunctious boy, streets of New York. And I think my mom didn't know what the hell to do, so she took me to the movies. When I was in the movies, I shut the F up and I was transfixed. I was transported. Jeff, when I would watch a film as a kid in theater, I understood the language. I empathized with the characters. It felt like home. It was so profound. It was like, oh, this is me. I belong here. So literally, probably as a toddler, I saw those things. I found those things, and it has never left. So ever since I was a child, it was film and story, but particularly film, movies. I'm the product of a lot of Hollywood popcorn stuff, but also, like you say, that 90s indie stuff that had a big impact on me too. But I'm the product of the American Cineplex, really.
And
And that's I found myself there, and it was always there, and to this day it still is.
and is it safe to say that that your main parent taking you to the movies also sort of elevated the importance of movies in your life? Like you looked at it as
That's
sort
a,
of a,
that's
or was it escape? Was it
So,
because
that's great. That's a great question. So honestly, I don't know that I've processed or thought of it, but the answer just really, my heart just jumped out. Yes, movies were also a place of safety. So my mom got sick when I was a kid, and I sort of knew she loved me to pieces, but life was hard for her. When I was in the theater, besides having this just innate connection, I think it was escape. I think it was safety. And the convergence of all of that, it created the director, writer, the artist in me. It was home.
excellent, excellent. So at that age, did you start writing, or what were
So
you
I
what was
started
your outlet?
writing. Okay, I started writing. I could tell you the movie that made me start writing. And it is a 90s classic. It is Before Sunrise.
Oh, sure.
So there was something about that. And mind you, like I was a kid, I was a tough kid in New York City housing projects. I was a boxer. I had been through the street shit, and I still was kind of in it at the time. But when I saw Before Sunrise, I was like, oh, that's me. I understand it. It makes sense. All of it. And that dialogue as a tool of character and theme and progressing plot and conflict, I was like, oh wow. I saw that, and then I was just like, oh, yeah, okay. That was the film that made me start writing. Other films made me start directing in my head. I guess I hit about 13 or 14, and then I paid attention to, you hit puberty, then your brain develops a little more. I processed and I thought about what camera angles meant, what camera movement meant, why a performance would go this way instead of that way. But Before Sunrise literally got me to start, writing down on, a bushy legal pad.
Was it? And I'm projecting onto you because the film that did that for me was something called The Brother from Another Planet. But was it
John
also
Sayles, my
John
man.
Sayles?
So as I'm preparing for this interview, I tapped into John Sayles because City of Hope is one of my favorite movies ever. But yeah, the brother, he's John Sayles.
But there was something about the authorship that I could see, and like Before Sunrise, you can sense the authorship that someone's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you go see Hollywood Fair, and there's very rarely a person's voice. Whereas Before Sunrise, it's a voice, it's a vision. You see that like someone created it.
It was the most real I had ever seen people on film up to that point. I had not seen Cassavetes. I had not seen French New Wave. But seeing Jesse and Celine and Richard Linklater's rhythm, and theirs too, because they contributed to the script, Ethan and Julie. I had never seen people talk like that, you know? I didn't. I hadn't seen Clerks at the time, but Clerks is kind of heightened, and you know, it's heightened. But Before Sunrise were people speaking, and not only speaking, but revealing. There was subtext in the film and in the direction, and it was so tender and beautiful, and like, you know, that was a part of me that existed, that, you know, I knew existed, and I guess I wanted to share.
Excellent. All right. So you started writing. Um, did you write quite a bit before you got the chance to play around with cameras and things? Was it,
I,
did
you
you
know,
do
I
any
was
performing?
So I was too poor to have access to any cameras. But you know, a few of the kids I knew from the right side of the tracks, because my life was a contradiction. I grew up in the hood, but a lot of my friends lived in the hills. They lived in the nice part of Queens. I grew up in the hood, from the streets, drugs, guns, violence. But I also went to Catholic school, so I went to private school. I would use their cameras, and we made a few little rinky-dink things. A few years after Before Sunrise, I wrote my first real screenplay, and I was a hustler. You know, I got it to the producers of the American Pie series, and they accepted my query and they read it, and they rejected it. But I started writing then, and I was writing a lot back then, or more, because I didn't have the means to film. And I was like, you know, maybe I could sell something, maybe I can sharpen up, blah, 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 blah. I didn't I didn't do much filming for a long time because I had school, I had work, I had a sick mom, and I didn't know that it was in the cards for me because it's so competitive, so difficult. I did make some things. I made a web series with my second mom. I wrote a feature based on that did well on the screenplay, the screenplay contest circuit. But you know, I didn't really get, you know, what I would call professional until probably 6-ish years ago. COVID really triggered my introduction back
Right.
into
So
that.
you made it through school and you just stayed almost in the back of your mind in a way is.
I was writing, right? And I
Hmm.
was acting. I was writing and acting, but you know, I didn't have the means, or I didn't realize I could have the means to direct. You know, with the advent of DSLRs, and I was doing quite a bit with advertising and marketing. So, you know, as the technology became better, I filmed many great spots for you know, a lot of nonprofits. Nonprofits is part of the way I pay my bills. So I made great profiles, you know, and spots for different nonprofits. And when I was doing that, I was like, oh, this feels really good. And I knew at some point I would pivot it into film and fiction. But, you know, my mom was dying, then she passed, COVID hits. And, you know, I was changing in a lot of ways. And work was changing too. I had lost a lot of work and a lot of money during COVID. So I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm going back to film, and life directed me towards that. So I've made a few films in the past few years, and now you know, I'm sort of back home, and yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to ask about the nonprofits because that's such an interesting perspective that, I mean, because it's almost like, you know, someone doing industrial films, but actually, what can I say? As someone who runs a freaking nonprofit, I like it is a it's almost an is it like in being and in making industrial films with an altruistic
I,
vibe to it, or was it, or how?
well,
I'm just curious how you got into that because you
yeah,
obviously had a
I'll tell you
skill
how.
set at that point.
Yeah. So I live in a nonprofit co-op in Queens that is founded by union labor, local union number 3, IBEW, right? My grandfather came here from Ireland. He was part of the Michael Collins Revolution. His siblings were getting killed, so it was like time to go to New York. Got to New York, worked for Con Ed. He was all about union. And then the head of the union here found out about this crazy effing Irishman and said, you need to come into my union and this apartment complex that we have for union members and their family. I ended up partially growing up here, and now I live here. And so the union reached out because, you know, I'm not in the union, but I'm part of the community. They said we need help with branding and you know, telling people stories. 5-year apprenticeship, super diverse, best benefits in the world, and they do extraordinary work. But there were gaps between, New York City is a union town, but no one realizes who the union members are, what they do, what they reflect. They don't know their values. So I would do these profiles, about the people, about the union, about the education. And that branched out into theater, that branched out into education, but it started there. And I believed in it. That's the only reason I could do it. So there was definitely altruism there, but it wasn't fluff. Like I'm not a propaganda. I'm not into propaganda. I have to believe it, and I have to have seen the results of it. So I made these pieces that were for the general public. They had universal themes and ideas, but they also spoke to elected officials, general contractors, the contractors, and the members. Altruistic, yes, but no bullshit, because I couldn't do that. Like there's certain political figures and groups. If they ask me to do something, I don't care what the money is. No way.
Yeah. I mean, it is amusing though that we have to qualify the term altruism to make sure that it's not seen as fluff. But I totally understand. I totally understand.
Yeah, like so I'm like, I don't mind espousing my virtues and values because I genuinely believe that they are healthy and good across the board. So I'm okay with that. And I do believe in dialogue. So if I represent a union member, I'm happy to have the conversation with someone who maybe doesn't believe in union or is on the fence. Like I want to believe and live in a world where people still can communicate even though they may not share the same perspective. So I'm okay with putting it out there and backing it up, but no fluff. If it doesn't pass the sniff test, nah, man. Nah.
It's funny, you inspire me because I often say, like, especially with the 4 questions thing we'll do later, when someone names a film I love as something that's overrated, I'm like, I love to talk to someone that I don't agree with, because you're supposed to be able to do that. And of course, we live in a culture now where, like, half the time we avoid topics so that we don't end up dealing with a fundamentalist person who's not open to another perspective, right? And I treasure talking to people who have different viewpoints. I mean, I couldn't help but listen to your story and think, the fact that I don't believe socialism is a bad word. so the fact that the IBEW is a International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, right? Yes. And these are the people that try living without electricity in the modern world, right? So the fact that there's a union and that there's housing, and the fact that this all helped you and also helped you get into this career, that's just already it proves to me the value of human beings collaborating and working together. That's all socialism is putting society above the individual when needed.
So bless you, and it's true. So I am the proud the proud product of public housing, number one. Okay. My mom got sick. She went on disability. I got some little check when I was a kid that, from Social Security or something, because she couldn't work.
SSI or whatever it was called.
Yeah, something like that. We got that till I was 18. So New York City housing projects. Probably my mom got food stamps. But, and now I live in a nonprofit housing, 80% union workers. And you're right. These are people who keep us safe. They come through 5-year apprenticeships. We are here to help each other. I don't mean that in a Pollyanna way. Socialism is not a bad thing. We owe it to ourselves. It's a reflection of our values. And yeah, you create good citizens if you give them some type of social safety and support and a safety net. It's common sense, man. If I did not have a Leicester, which is what this apartment complex is called, and if I didn't have public housing and public help, I would have ended up dead, homeless, whatever. So many people I grew up around, dead or in jail. Like I am the exception. I am really, really fortunate, but great things can happen with public help. You can become someone who then does not need public help, and then can contribute to public help. Socialism is not a bad thing.
No?
And arts are not a bad thing. I have work. I work. Like the myth of the artist, I'm not a slacker. I have bills to pay. I stay on top of my credit. I pay my bills. I contribute to society. I pay my taxes. And that's all because I got public help, and the art side, that's made me empathetic. That's allowed me to put my feet in other people's shoes. And damn it, man. Doesn't this world need more empathy now?
Of course, of course. All right, so COVID comes along, and it is a shock to everyone's system. Generally worldwide, we've been probably the first time in about 80-ish years that everyone in the world experienced something together, and that's when the light bulb went off, and you said, "I'm going to make a film."
I had lost work. I was going to take an apartment in hipster Williamsburg. I was going to take this big job, well-paying, all this other stuff. I was kind of stepping back from the film stuff, from writing. My mom had just passed.
Yeah, very sorry to hear that.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. I had a breakup, and it was just like, okay. And then I produced a series of shows for a theater in the city, a theater I currently work for, a big name theater in Times Square in the theater district. And it rekindled it. And then I shot this little, I shot a teaser for one of the best things I've ever written. I wrote a script called Trill. And it's about this young black opera prodigy who's got the greatest voice in the history of voices. His voice is magic, and it's him fighting outer and inner demons. So I shot a teaser for that, a little 3-minute piece that encompasses the world, and then it was just like, it was nonstop, yeah. And it's been, in the past 4 or 5 years, I've made 4 films, real films. I hope to make the feature this year. I knock on wood, thank whatever you believe in or don't believe in. I'm finally doing what I feel like I was supposed to do my whole life.
Amazing, wonderful. And I mean, sounds like you're averaging around a film a year. Are you in that world where you're just jotting down ideas all the time, and then every once in a while one grows and overtakes, and it says to you, "I am your next project"?
Yeah, so the film in your festivals, More Dead Than Living, that was part of a sort of a series, but its own independent thing. And I didn't write the script. I knew I was going to do something about death and flushing, in the Chinese community, which is my community. By the way, Gonzi Fat Chai. We are recording this on the Lunar New Year, and to you and yours, Gonzi Fat Chai, which is why I'm wearing red. So that came to me. And it came to me so ferociously. It was the most ambitious thing I had ever done. The other things were smaller. They were handheld. They were grittier. They were more dramatic, right? But I didn't want to do that. And this became bigger. The script was longer. It was comedic. I was like, we got to shoot this on sticks. And, we're going to use better cameras. That is an example of things coming to be. And the script wrote itself like in a day. I had a few ideas, but man, when I put them on paper, they just flew out, and that's an example of like, yeah, that has to be done. That came out of me. The next film I make, which I hope is a feature called You'll Do, that has been with me for a while. And I feel like this is the time, and it has to be, although, shit can happen. Yeah, that so the things that I make, Jeff, they come from, I don't know where they come from, but I have to them steward them and accept them and let them, nag me and claw me and stick things in me until I bring them into the world. I always have ideas. Like every single day, I have 5 million ideas, but there's a few that are sacred and special, and I want to make them. I feel like they want to come out. So, it's like, okay, I'm here. What can I do to bring you into the world? I'm at your service. Please be gentle, but not too gentle, because got to kick me around a little bit.
Sometimes it feels good. All right, so if you'll have to tolerate some compliments now, because I'm going to talk about More Dead Than Living in that. Well, I have a slight bias actually, which is I love when someone tells a story about death, and I think we can say it's about death because the title's More Dead Than Living, and it is actually based on that amazing fact that you share early in the film, which is in Queens, New York, with the number of cemeteries, obviously, but there are actually more dead people than living people.
There are more dead people than living people in Queens. There are more tombstones than there are people in Queens. It's yes, that is a fact.
Which is amazing. But then what I was going to share is that obviously the human. I'll go deep because you're deep. The human condition is that we are one of the few beings on our planet that is aware our time is finite. We are aware we will die. I'm not too, and so that greatly affects us. And anytime someone writes a story about death that is completely original that I have not seen before, I pick up my pom poms and I start like waving them in the air and being like, I become a cheerleader for this film because death is death. If death is not present in your life, then I think you're probably a person who's been very, very fortunate and maybe is not empathetic towards the world, because even before you experience it, it's around. And to have an original, funny, creative version of what it's like for the Grim Reaper to come for you, that's just the kind of storytelling that I can't get enough of.
Thank you, Jeff. Big hug. Thank you, and the check's in the mail. But wait, so you're saying I'm gonna die someday?
You know?
I'm fucking
I
with you.
mean, no. The funny thing is,
I know.
like, maybe we will, maybe we won't. For all we know, the simulation just reboots. I don't know.
Um, Geez. Oh God.
But the idea you said it wrote it you were the kind of unegotistical person who said it kind of wrote itself and very quickly. So really, the premise hit, and you just saw exactly where this premise would go.
I did, and there were just a few. The seeds before that ultimate response were death, Chinese culture, Flushing, probably a widow, and hopefully comedy, dark comedy. So one of the goals, if not the main goal, is to make people uncomfortable in the best way possible. Because you're right, people do not deal with death well. They don't want to talk about it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm on the opposite spectrum. I don't want to talk about it nonstop, but I do think about it and acknowledge it makes your life better. I think it can force you to live better, to appreciate things more, et cetera, et cetera. I think death could be one of our greatest teachers. And at the same time, death is something you want to punch in the face and kick in the balls and tell fuck off. It's all those things. So I wanted to do something that was really, really, really challenging. Full of hope and tragedy. If you've experienced grief, grief untreated could just ruin a person. It really, really could. I think there's so many people in the world who don't realize that they're traumatized by grief or some type of loss, and you hope they overcome that. You hope that they find forgiveness, they find release, and it's about all those things, and hopefully you can laugh at those things as hopefully you can laugh through the tears.
And our culture, we happen to live in our North American, whatever you want to call our culture, that is we in aggregate, people want to pretend death doesn't exist. And I happen to be one of those freaks who want to talk about it all the time and talk about the people I've lost. Like I believe it's healthier to talk about. I actually did have before we started recording, I mentioned a best friend to you. We were a trio until the first month of COVID. We lost our third wheel to COVID on the first week of March in 2020. So, and I find it's healthier to talk about him all the time as if he's still here. And when we, and abusingly, when we get together, I guess I'm very lucky because I get to go to Vancouver, Canada to see my best friend and then, we'll just be at dinner and I'll just say in front of our partners, like, it's a race. Like I had to talk at David's funeral, but you better fucking talk at mine. If you outlive me, like, or if I outlive you, I'm going to talk shit about you. So you better let me, you know what I mean? You better like we just, I think it's healthier to talk about it and talk about the people we've lost as if they're still here.
I think
to not pretend they don't exist.
First and foremost, I am sorry for your loss. And I that is such a glorious cliche. It sounds terrible, but I mean it with like big hearts.
I meant it for your mom. It's
I know.
Yeah,
thank you.
Because when you've had grief, you
man. So this is very personal, but you're great. I'll share it. So when my mom passed, like the grief, I couldn't. I was gutted. Right. My mom was in hospice at home, and it was supplied by the Visiting Nurse Service of New York. They sent out this pamphlet about bereavement group counseling. And I was like, no. But the grief was so bad. I was like, I got to do something. I needed help, So I went to this bereavement group. I was the youngest person by like a millennia. But Jeff, these people, they understood it. It was the only place, they were the only people who knew the feeling. Like it's so hard to describe unless you've been in it, they knew it, and it offered a sense of comfort to be around that. Yeah, grief is a unique thing,
Yeah, and the sense that people don't want to hear about it is so unfair to the grieving, whereas you found a group of people who knew how important it is to let you share it. And
the exhaustion of grieving while having to take care of people who don't understand, who are not good at dealing with it. It's a layer of exhaustion and pain on top of your grief. So when you're grieving, a lot of times you have to protect the other people around you who may not know what to say, how to say it, or what to do, because, they want no part of that shit, and then it's like, damn, I got to carry your weight too, motherfucker. But all good. I wish people would embrace uncomfortable things more in art and in life, because I think that makes us stronger and better. And I think for you and your friends and the speeches, who gets there first, I think if there is another side, I think you all have to get together and you have to have a contest as to who gave the better speech. You have to say, all right, I think I got the most laughs. I got the most tears. People were throwing money at me. Like, I think I won. And Jeff, I think you would win.
I don't know. It's going to be tough because needless to say, I will share with the world that when you eulogize someone who you lose in a shocking way, it's very funny because when I've gotten together with his other friends, because he lived in Chicago for a while. So when I see the Chicago crew, I always say something like, oh man, if I could fucking rewrite that speech, there's so much I'd want to. And then they tell me, no, you shouldn't change a thing. So it makes me feel a little better, but in the moment. But anyway, and I'm always envious. I don't know how true it is, but I had a college professor from Europe. I actually don't even know where in Europe because he had one of those pan-European kind of fancy accents. Could have been Paris, could have been somewhere else, could have been German. But he said, like, you know, we go and have picnics at our cemeteries. We spend time with our dead. We don't, you know, he said, like, you guys put them on a hill, away, removed, behind gates. You don't even walk by it anymore. He's like, we bury them in our backyards, we bury them in our neighborhoods, and then we go have lunch there. And I always wondered just how much healthier that must be.
You know, my mom is buried 2 blocks from my place. And her twin sister, Aunt Rita, they're buried together. So when I'm jogging outside or driving by, et cetera, there is a comfort, you know, there is an acknowledgement, you know, they don't have to go. You keep them in, the energy does not die, and it's nice having them around. And I, for the record, will not also AI them in any way, shape, or form. I'm okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm keeping them in my heart.
Yeah. You know? And sliding back to the film, I'll mention too that I love the father-daughter relationship. I love the sense of family, and that family's not always easy. It's so, like you said about Before Sunrise, isn't it interesting that in your film that one might say includes magical realism or just unrealistic elements, and yet it's incredibly down to earth.
I wanted to make it real and lived in, and everything was supposed to play off of each other. You know, if you have the guts, let's give a little giggle. If it's very real, we can twist it just a little bit, you know, but let's bring it back to a human place and an emotion. That's always the goal. So I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but there's this guy, Steven Spielberg. He makes films. And I know, right? Yeah. He says the greatest special effect is emotion. I heard that as a kid, and I think it's driven so much of what I try to do with film. It all has to come back to an emotion, a theme, et cetera, et cetera. There was a lot of emotion in this, and it had to be that way, you know. And uniquely, Chinese men of a certain age, particularly the ones born there, they don't have time or room for emotion. You know, she says to him over dinner, "Oh, what do you know about emotional support?" And he said, "Nothing. It sounds stupid." They kind of feel like that. However, we know there's no one in the world who doesn't feel pain, who doesn't feel joy, who doesn't feel the spectrum. Even if they deny it or they're not aware of it, they still experience it. I wanted to capture the uniquely Asian aspect of a father-daughter relationship, particularly one who was born in America and one who wasn't. And I wanted it to circle back into universal emotion. You know, the things we can all relate to, you know, the things that are a part of us: family, regret, death, grief, you know, forgiveness, all those things that are, you know, uniquely expressed across different cultures, but all ultimately very, very human.
And you benefited from another thing that I'm using as a trope, basically, because I realized this in the last year as a festival runner, that the more specific the story, if you're telling an emotional story that is so specific and accurately true, whether to a culture or whatever, the more narrow it is, the more universal it is, because everyone's experience is unique and specific. And so, yes, when you see, whether it's Chinese or Taiwan, when you see, there was actually, I realized this the first time because we had a film. Oh my God, it was either the year before you were in Filmvasion or it was at the same time as your film. And it was about a Filipino grandfather. And it was just the most beautiful, a Papa's Corner. And it was beautiful, and it was about losing it, and the filmmakers made it as truthful and as narrowly Filipino as they could. And then I saw my Jewish grandfather on screen because he was a real grandfather. And I said that to them. I said, I've never seen someone who reminded me of my grandfather more than this, because you made it so truthful.
So the great Gabriel Garcia Marquez paraphrased Jeff Howard by saying that exact. Yeah, no, he did. Marquez paraphrased Jeff Howard.
Maybe I might be paraphrasing him with that.
No. He paraphrased you. it's true. You know, I remember being a young man, and Love and Time of Cholera is one of my favorite books, and he's just a master. He's great. Yeah, he said, you said, and he paraphrased you, the more specific a thing is, the more universally it will be felt. So if you go into the specifics of the culture, it becomes universal. You know, that people will apply it to their own experience. And that's our common thread, man. That's story, that's humanity, you know, that's so fucking beautiful and important.
It really is. And then the converse, and then I'll get negative and say, and then the converse is true, which is if let's say there was a general thing called Hollywood, and their goal was to make the most general films possible, they won't resonate at all because as soon as the grandfather character is a trope that we've seen a million times and there's nothing specific and it's super generalized so that it'll appeal to everyone, this low and common denominator bullshit, then you sit through it and you go home having felt nothing.
So you're right, and the realization that you're right. Excuse me, I have to vomit into this cup because okay.
Because I mentioned that kind of
Hollywood is. You know, I think you and I both want Hollywood to succeed, and we want theaters to succeed, and we want the community and everyone to succeed. But we don't want garbage out there. We don't want the grandfather who's either always too happy or always too sad and is a total empty cliche with chat written dialogue and, you know, just the worst kind of tropes. But unfortunately, I don't trust Hollywood to get nuance and subtlety and accurate ethnic expression and deep emotion right. You know, they are products. They are not films made from the gut. A lot of them. There are some good ones still, but they're more few and far between, which is.
Well, and I keep hoping that they will notice that every year there's a couple films that break through. And I think last year I'll just name Sinners and Weapons. And these films were original and we hadn't seen them before. And people flock to it. So maybe if I ran a Hollywood studio, I'd be like, well, you know, maybe we don't make the 117th story the same way.
Weapons floored me, man. I walked in there like the way, the structure, the script, like, holy shit, that was brilliant. I had no expectation. The way they told that story in terms of narrative and even technically, whoa, like I'm in awe of Weapons. I appreciate the uniqueness of Sinners too. It wasn't my favorite, but it was unique and ballsy in a lot of ways. And I want to do what Ryan Coogler did. My man said to the system, I have the script. I'm going to make it this way. In 20 years, I get the rights back. I get points. He gamed the system. He beat them at their own game, and it was original. It was fresh. You're right. That's what we need. If you and I were running the studios, I bet we would make them more money because we wouldn't spend, you know, $500 million on Guardians of the Galaxy 26 and Justice League 37. We would produce original ballsy content that appeals to people and is unique and well done. And you could do it affordably, man. You know, Sinners was a $40 million film, and that thing probably made bank.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, clearly, it's funny. I was almost going to jump on a tangent. I think we'll avoid it. But maybe we'll have a conversation someday and I'll bring up, I believe it was in the late 80s or mid 80s, an amazing British writer, director, producer, and I can't remember his name, but I think the gentleman behind, I can't remember, but he actually got control of a studio for a minute and made the kind of decisions that you thought should be made, got fired. And then I believe the films he greenlighted were The Little Emperor, Hope and Glory, and a couple others. And they all made lots of money because the audiences wanted something original. And then they cleaned up at the Oscars. And it was all because an actual artist was running a studio for a minute. before the corporate overlord said, why do we have a movie called The Last Emperor? No one's going to go see it. This guy's out, and then the Oscars came along and like he had made it all happen for that, whichever studio it was. I can't remember. 30 years ago, I could tell the story.
I like listening to you tell stories, Jeff. You're great. And please, if ever you want a tangent, I'm your guy. You can tangent with me.
Fair enough. All right, so you have shared that You'll Do is next.
Or maybe a More Dead sequel.
Or continuing the More Dead Than Living story, because no spoilers, but there is room to grow. And were you, obviously you have, it concludes wonderfully.
Thank you.
I won't give anything away because people should watch the film, but there is an ending. What a stupid thing to say, but sometimes there's shorts that really do feel like act one, but this is a 3-act film.
It deliberate. So one of my gripes, and I don't know everything, you filmmakers, you can please shade me. Okay. Please do it. So I've been in festivals, I've seen the blocks, etc. I find a lot of these short films don't have beginning, middles, and end, and it's not a knock. It's just my preference. I do sometimes enjoy the beginning, middle, and end because I'm about emotional flow. I'm about the setup, the resolution, even if it's not tidy. Like this film is not tidy there is sort of a conclusion, but it is not exactly tidy. I do like beginning, middle, and end, though, because I the purist in me, part of the challenge as a short film is to introduce the characters, introduce the conflict, make you feel something, and tie something up. So show some change. That is so hard to do within 5 to 15 minutes or 7 to 20 minutes. It's really like short films are really, really hard to get right. I want to see the big filmmakers come back and make these short films. They're so inherently difficult to pack. It is 15 pounds in a 5-pound bag. I try to challenge myself with this and with a lot of things to have sort of a beginning, middle, and end. And for me, that's part of the seduction of being an audience member and viewer too. Hook me with the first conflict, show me the greater conflict, show me the change. I wish more short films had that. And short filmmakers, you can kick me in the balls if you disagree and you think they should be experimental or whatever you want them to be, because you are 100% right.
Well, I also think, you mentioned the films that were in your block at Film Invasion Los Angeles last year, and all 3 told a complete story. All 3 had 3 acts. All 3. I was going to joke with you when you were complimenting the programming. I'm like, well, it's actually pretty easy to program when all the films are good. Because, right? Because if I have 61 films on our list that fit the amount of time we have rented at the theater, and they're all rated averaged above 9 out of 10 by our jurors, it's not that hard to put a good film next to a good film. As long as it's not horribly incongruous, quality does actually continue. And the films you named that were in your block, you found unifying elements in their stories.
I did.
But also the unifying element was that they were 3-act stories. They were complete ideas, done wonderfully, done well, like told well.
Amen. And
that makes my job so easy.
Well, whoever the programmer is for this Film Invasion LA, Jeff, kudos to them. I tip my hat to them. If you know that person by any means, and that team, you know.
Well, I'm saying they have it easy because they're annoyingly high standards. That the funny thing is, I think almost everything. No, The Last Light was local, but I think 3 or 4 films were not local. But we're just wonderfully dumb. We're not going to program a bunch of locally made films that can pack the house. We're just going to show the best films possible, and then that makes it makes it easy.
Bravo.
And I looked it up, by the way, and the one we couldn't name is Lost Not Forgotten. That was the last one.
Lost Not Forgotten, right. With
That
the
was
lead actor
Feynman's.
who was in Winning Time. He played Larry Bird.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
dude does remind me of Larry Bird.
he did play Larry Bird. Yeah, and he did. Justin Feynman. Justin was the bloke who was the other, I think, producer or co-writer or co-director. He and I bonded and clicked at the Solar Party on the night of the opening party. Great guy. Like there was a lot of good vibes in that room. I met some great people. I mean, that is the other nice part of something like Film Invasion and a good festival. Meeting these great people. And Justin was just a lovely, great guy. Great
Right.
dude.
And if we can be snobs, it's also really nice to meet people and then see their work and appreciate it. Because I remember having the experience of meeting people at festivals, and this was 30 plus years ago, and being like, wow, I can't wait to see their film. And you go see it, and it's a piece of crap. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say now? Do I run out of the room? Do I never want to talk to them again? How do I face them?
I ain't name dropping, but I've had friends that are screenwriters that you've seen their work, you know them. You have to see their film on opening weekend. Oh, great work. Yeah, no, and you're right. The work there was after the film, after the block. It was a joy to speak to everyone because their work was good. You didn't have to bullshit, and the questions we all asked each other amongst filmmakers, and the respect. We got it. We were like, we were the New York Knicks. Sorry, I don't know if you're a Lakers fan, but that's not accept. Yeah, you're a Knicks fan. I see it in you, Jeff. You're wearing the Knicks hat. We felt like a team. Throughout it all, from the red carpet to the programming, to Gavin doing the Q&A, we all clicked. We were a team. It was great.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I will admit to I like rooting for an underdog. So sometimes it's hard to root for the Lakers if you like an underdog.
I bleed New York Mets. Knicks have half my heart, but whatever you like is cool with me because you're so cool, Jeff. I will wear whatever hat, whatever team you like, or even if you're not into sports, that's okay. Because basketball and baseball are not my number ones. My number one is boxing because I grew up boxing.
Wow, nice.
Boxing kept me off the streets and out of jail. It was like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a world champion, and then I wanted to make films. It was very specific.
It's funny, amusingly, and here's me sharing that I'm an opposite. My sport's tennis, and I've loved tennis all my life.
Oh, you mentioned we had spoken in an email. You weren't feeling well, but you were then getting back to tennis, and I was happy to hear that.
Was it? Yeah, was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have an injury last year. I had to learn to stretch. It's a very weird thing to play sports all your life and just be a young idiot who just like goes out and plays and like your young body can take it.
Yeah.
And then I reached an age and I was getting constantly injured, and then I finally noticed that the people who don't get hurt are stretching first. So I've matured. I haven't been hurt now for about 8 months, and I have a good stretching routine.
I see the resemblance to Stretch Armstrong. I think you're Jeff. This is good. Keep on swinging. Tennis is great. I briefly played. They had this little ghetto tennis program called the New York Junior Tennis League. I think they even gave me like a little scholarship my first year in college. We played on the hard concrete of Pominock projects. They set up nets in these faded line tennis courts, and I played in a few tournaments. And tennis is awesome, man. I got to tell you, as someone who's competed in a lot of things, the conditioning that you needed to be a tennis player was pretty remarkable. It's a great sport.
It actually is. I mean, I could see connections between tennis and boxing, in that it's often two individuals, opposing each other. It's not. I mean, I actually have always loved team sports too, but it is. I am very fortunate. See, you make me share. I was a basketball. I was just a team sports kid, like most, right? Playing suburbs in the suburbs. And I think must have been an uncle told my mother, get him into tennis because all the other sports go away once you're out of school. Like you can't get people together for a baseball game in your 30s. But
Right.
tennis will last, he said, tennis will last all his life. And
Amazing.
so when I was around, I think 8 or 9 years old, my mom just took me to the public park and paid some lady $5 an hour to teach me tennis, and my older brother. And of course, it was fun to be better than my older brother.
Well, you're the more talented, the more athletic, the more handsome, the more smart. Like Jeff, we know this, and it's always fun to remind him, remind everyone.
It's always important, but yeah, a lifelong sport. It's nice. It's nice to have it.
That is going to you are very far from old age and bad health, but that is going to make all your years better. We have to take care of our body, and balance is the key, and never stop playing tennis, and you'll never stop being better than your brother either at tennis.
That's true. And he's a nice guy. But I'll say
I love
that.
your brother. He's great. You're cooler, but I love your brother. And God bless your mom. She did a great job. You're good people.
Thank you. Well, so anything else we should throw in before we briefly step out, and then we'll record your 4 questions?
You can find me at Two-Hander Films on IG and at twohander.com. And please support indie film. Please support good festivals. Discover Indie Film, Film Invasion LA, Sherman Oaks Film Festival. Jeff, so ladies and gentlemen, Jeff and I have emailed a lot over the past few months, and he's responsive. It's really, really nice having this kind of relationship. So thank you, Jeff. And this is great. Yeah. And whoever's listening, I hope I didn't bore you. And if I did bore you, I will mail you a very comfortable pillow to make up for it. So if you ever listen to it again, because I bored you, you can use the pillow and sleep better.
You nearly took care of the whole outroduction. Is it an outro for me? Because I'm about to name all the things, and I'll mention that. So your film, More Dead Than Living, will have the link for it right in the show notes. So people, now you are free. Look, we didn't do any spoilers, so now you are free to click that link and watch the film that we discussed. And we'll also have a clickable link for your Instagram, so people can follow you there. And should probably look up other Two-Hander work, the stuff you did before.
Yeah. Una Carta a Messias is that won awards. That is about an undocumented mom in New York City pursuing the American dream. And she writes a letter to her kids, and her letter is sort of this confession as we follow her and we see her life. So this is a handheld kind of Terrence Malick-like, gritty, a very real story. This is everything you see in this film is real. It's fictional, but it comes from real stories. And this is the price of being an American citizen, being a woman, being a mom, not having your family here. It's a tough little thing that we're proud of. Miracle on 74th Street, which is about actors, Bollywood actors who are in New York City, who actually have to drive cabs. And this is about, who they are, what they regret, and, someone who's been this younger version and this younger version who might become this older version. It's a two-hander. I call it like Training Day Bollywood, they're like Ethan and Denzel spending the day together, and Trill, which is this little opera tale, which I hope someday to turn into a feature or a series. Opera is an interesting thing that I don't think film is really, really tackled correctly. And this is magical realism. This is opera. This is tragedy. This is hope. This is romance. This is darkness. This is monsters. This is angels. This is demons. This is Nason Dorma. Hope you check it out. And if anyone wants to connect, I love hearing from people, connecting with people. And thank you for the platform, Jeff.
Excellent. All right. Feel free to fire off an email to me with links to more things, and unless if someone links to More Dead Than Living, if that takes them right to the Two-Hander YouTube page, then they can click on that and see the other stuff probably. But I'm happy to put links for everything. Links are cool. And now I will ramble off the links that are at the very bottom of the show notes, which is, well, first I'm going to thank JT. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to learn more about this podcast where we talk to filmmakers on the festival circuit, it's funny because you mentioned this, what's his name, the Spielberg person. I always joke with people that my reason deep down for this podcast is that somebody, if someone had interviewed Mr. Steven when his short film Amblin was playing the festival circuit, because I've been to festivals that their claim to fame is they showed Amblin in 1970 whatever, and they're like, we showed Amblin before he was anybody. Imagine if there was an interview with him when he was that age, right before he made it. So this is my hope that one of the wonderful filmmakers that is on this podcast will one day be at that Spielberg level, and people will be able to listen to them when they were still on the festival circuit. So anyway, that's Discover Indie Film.
If ever I get there, I'm taking you with me, and if ever I get there, I'm going to be on your board, and we're going to, whatever. Yep. Amen. And it's a great idea.
Much appreciated. All right, so that was a long way to get to this, which is go to discoverindiefilm.com for more info about this podcast and things that grow from it. On social media, it's at DIFWins. I am personally over a year into my quitting of social media. I peek at it now and then, but it was weird. I quit it last January for maybe some obvious reasons, if people know what happened in January of 2025. And there might have been some Zuckerberg kid did some public things, and I thought, if I'm scrolling and seeing ads, even if I skip over the ad, no, this is bad. So I got off it, and then I read a few more books, but haven't been reading enough. But anyway, so at DIF Wins, it's my way of thanking publicly my wonderful podcast producer, Karina, who's an excellent staffer with the festivals. And Karina handles the social media stuff so that I don't have to. Because, as soon as those algorithms are powerful, man, and they know that one of my best friends ever was a bunny rabbit, and they start showing me bunny rabbit videos, and then before you know it, I've lost like 7 days. No, that's...
Be careful of chat. Chat is going to start advertising, and then it might, devolve into Facebook and start, feeding you things that advertisers want you to get, not what you should be getting.
Man, so much. All right, so anyway, that's discoverindiefilm.com and at DIFWins for social media. If you go to discoverindiefilm.org, that is the nonprofit's website that runs both Sherman Oaks Film Festival and Film Invasion Los Angeles. I call them sister festivals. So you can learn all about them if you just go to discoverindiefilm.org. And I will mention now that they have a sibling. No, they got a cousin. A South American cousin was born this year in January of 2026. We held the first ever Film Invasion Lima. Pilar and Chevy did a wonderful job running it down there. I got very lucky to find they're actually Sherman Oaks Film Festival alumni. And it was a wonderful process that we launched Film Invasion Lima. Next year, it's going to be Valentine's Day weekend, which is also President's Day weekend, so more Americans might be able to fly down. But so keep an eye out for Film Invasion Lima. And I'm going to thank JT Doran one more time.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone for listening.